Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Round Table. I'm here with Ben. What's going on, man?
It's going good, dude. Oh my gosh. We had a late night last night.
Holy
and
crap.
It wasn't what most people think, you know. We weren't out partying. We were just
Family time.
Family time, man.
Yeah.
It was amazing, actually. And we drove late.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys got I don't know what time you guys must have been right behind us, but on the way home they were doing fireworks everywhere.
Yeah.
So we got a fireworks show on the way home.
Yeah.
This
I rolled into my house at 11. I got there right about 11.
Right at
o'clock.
11?
Right.
Oh, damn. And you left after me. But we
I
stopped, so.
I also was probably doing a little bit faster speed than you.
Probably. I can
I was safely cruising at 90 the whole way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we stopped twice on an hour and a half drive for bathroom breaks.
Yeah, I didn't have that problem. My youngest, my kids fell asleep, and then the wife fell asleep for a minute, and just me and my mother-in-law talked a little bit here and there. My wife was on and off sleeping.
In and out.
Yeah, in and out sleeping, and and I take advantage of the speed limit at times.
There you go. You have to,
just-
man. Everybody else
just
is
the way
going
I- yeah.
85, 90, so.
Yeah, it's just that was the thing, is just keeping up with most people, and just I wasn't planning on stopping anyway. So
Yeah, we got to about, what is it, like Mona area, and it was just like right at the side of the road. I
Yeah.
was like, this is freaking awesome. Because we got home about like 11:20, almost 11:30. I took a wrong way and ended up on banging her and single lane traffic. So I was like, construction work. Cool. But it was all good. It was fun. It was good getting together with the family and everything.
It was a long ass day, but yeah, I mean, it's always fun. I mean, there's always some new aspect. There's always something going on, I
Yeah.
mean, I thought, and we always joke, because at the end of the day, you kind of do end up sticking with your family, and you'll mingle a little bit here and there, and it's our wife's side, so everybody knows it's our wife's side. I mean, we could have the same family, who knows? But yeah, no, it's our wife's side, and it's something, I've been going to for almost 19 years now.
Dang.
I think it was year 18. I think I've gone to almost all of them around the time I've been around the family.
Wow.
So, and it's a fun little tradition. I mean, the kids have a blast, and I mean, that's what we were there for. It's just for the kids. I mean, shit, my kids. You didn't see your kid because our kids were together the whole freaking damn time. But
it is nice to
yeah, it was
just let them play and get all muddied up. And
I looked at my wife during part of it, and I said, it's a lot less stress now because they're
a little older.
They're not as young, and they can kind of take care of themselves. And once again, your father-in-law and mother-in-law are amazing hosts and gracious.
Seriously.
And let the kids hang out in the trailer and play, and grandpa and grandma will do anything for their granddaughters. So but yeah, they had an absolute blast. Just look over at my youngest, and she was just in her element, playing in the dirt and the water and having a blast. And it was
those moments are to be, and sometimes I think I just get so wrapped up in that, and yesterday was one of those days, because there was moments where I'm just sitting there, and I'm sure people are like, this guy's just weird, he's quiet, he's just sitting there not doing anything. But I love sitting back and just watching everything unfold, and watching the kids play and just people interact. I like that stuff, man. I just like zoning out and just looking at the family. And those are memories that I remember all the time. I'll look back and be like, I remember that day I was just sitting there just chatting with you or Dave or anybody, you know what I mean? Or just jokes that we were telling around, and it's just those memories are like unmatched, man. Like in my core memories, you know what I mean? It's just times that you can look back and be like, when days are shitty or whatever, you're like, it's all worth it. It's all for these kids, all for the family. It's all, all these other things, materialistics are cool, but the really seriously, like my why always solidifies back to my family, and just wanted to see that happiness on their faces. So,
well, for me, it's, I'm somebody that like craves quality time with people, like especially when it comes to my wife and my kids and stuff. So having a spot where apparently some people had service. I lose service. I lose service like about 10 minutes after Scipio when you get off on Scipio.
So we have the same carrier because
yeah. I mean, one must be on the same towers.
yeah.
And then up there, I never have tried to get service either because I'm like, I'm with who I want to be with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I told my wife. I'm like, I'm excited for that part, as somebody that, my wife runs the business and everything, she does have to be on her phone quite a bit more to take care of that stuff and all of that. Her page, you guys have shown a tremendous amount of love on that, which has been freaking awesome. I've loved seeing it. So I just I've been waiting to shout that out for, as you guys can tell, you guys know you guys are doing it. You're sharing it. You're liking it. You're loving it. You're commenting. We love it, but so that's been a huge focus of this last week, between, I'm sure your phone, my phone, her phone, it's all kind of blowing up and I freaking love it. So I'm like, it's nice to take that away. And, my wife's like, man, you crave this, but you're not all over me. And I'm like, it's less about that so much. Like, I love to know that I can just walk up to you and you're just, you're doing the same thing I'm doing. You're just talking to people and enjoying and interacting in person rather than through a screen. Right. So, and she would always, she's just giving me shit, but that's the way I look at that is I'm like, no service. No, the crowd gets bigger, but bigger and different, I guess I should say, because half the people I look at, and like I said, I've been going for years, and I'm like, who the hell's that? Yeah. But everybody changes, and you see them once a year, and my memory fades from half that stuff. But it was fun. It was worth it.
It was a good time. It was, like you said, you get to unplug. That's the thing about the mountains for me too, man. Yeah. Until I met Tay, I wasn't much of a mountain person or anything like that, but just that feeling of unplugging, that's a true saying. You unplug from the societal norms of having your phone with you all the time. And I have it because you see animals and stuff like that. I'll take pictures, but you don't have to worry about the constant connection of trying to check whether it be Instagram or any other platforms. You know what I mean? And kind of just focus in on the beauty of where you're at and the people that you're with, the conversations you can have. It's like going for a walk, for me, it's the same thing. We have our phones just because, you never know what emergency but Taylor leaves hers. So I take mine and, it'll ring or whatever. And I silence it and I'm like, you know what? I'm with you here. We're just talking. That's the beauty of it. So
it was even nicer for me because mine goes into sleep mode at like 8:20 every single night.
I used to do that until Grandpa passed away. Grandpa Coochie. That was my thing. I would always, my notifications would shut off, right? It goes into sleep and you don't get anything. And then I did it for a while. Then Grandpa Coochie passed away and, Sherilyn and Gary were calling me and I wasn't getting anything. I was pissed because I was like, I ended up seeing, I don't know, I remember how or what, because hers goes on that mode as well. But, I was just like, okay. But I know you can allow certain calls to come through. So,
yeah. I was going to say, I have it set so, my certain notifications will come through. And honestly, it's mainly just my wife. And, my household stuff, my garage, my door, and my wife, come through. But it also turns off at 3:45 in the morning. So if it's that big of an emergency and I'm up at 4, right? So I'll see it pretty quickly after. And there is a rule, I think, on them where if you call more than 2 or 3 times, it'll actually force it through because
really?
It understands the emergency of it. Like if you call back to back a few times. Okay. So that's an option, or they can force send messages through. So
I did see that. It was
notify anyway.
Notify anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you probably saw it when you sent me a message at 11:30 last night.
Yeah.
But, which, it is what it is. We both I think we both had the mentality we were going to do this at 6. Yeah. But you gave the option and I didn't give it back. So
Well, yeah, no, I think it starts with it's communication, right? And I think my mentors always told me, because we talk about wives, right? We'll talk about communication with our wives.
let's just use that as a subject today. I didn't have one. But we can talk about a little bit of communication and see where we go from there. So
So he's told me, men think we're communicating, and you talk to the wives like they suck at communicating. You know what I mean? Not that sense, but that's kind of the response we'll get, to put it in our terms. And he's like, if you think you're communicating, you're not communicating. If you think you're over communicating, you're just barely communicating. He's like, so I think every wife he'd like ask, the people, like, is there any wife in here that would be upset if their husband over communicated everything? And not a hand went up. And it's like, you can't really, I mean, I guess you can't get freaking annoying, but at the same time, it's like most men don't do that already, so they don't communicate at all. So it's like, hey, I'm gonna do this to, so then they know what you're doing, and it's not like they're in the blue or they're in the dark about what you're doing or what's going on. Like, what? I know what I'm doing. Well, yeah, I know you do, but that doesn't help the situation to have an understanding of what everybody's doing. And I think it's important. I think it's nice to, and Taylor and I actually, we talked about this on the way up yesterday, oddly enough, since we're going to jump into that conversation or that topic for this. But, that's one thing that we want to fix, in our relationship, is better communication. We're always working on communication, because I think it's critical. It's vital to be able to communicate it with each other, whether it be in a normal situation where everything is happy and dandy and we're all good, or in a unsafe situation where we know that we think certain things have to happen. If there's a shooter, if there's, an emergency in the house, there's a fire, there's somebody's breaking in. The communication has to be so well planned out, and we need to understand each other so well that I don't need to, like, did you hear me on, like, we should be able to just boom, 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 tic tac, and we were talking about that yesterday, and I'm like, yeah, I think it's all right. And she's like, no, we can be better. We can be way better at communicating. We can be better at this. And then oddly enough, we're kind of running late, and I was like, look, I don't know if we're gonna make it for breakfast. I don't know what time they're gonna make it.
Man, you had nothing to fucking worry about. But keep going.
I was like, I don't know. I think we're gonna be there around 9:30. So blah blah blah. I don't know. And then I was like, look, I'd rather you guys just get breakfast. I can make it till I fast anyways. I can make it till noon, 1. I'm good. I'll be fine. And I was like, I'd rather you guys just get something small. Get some in your bellies. If we get there, there's something cool. If there's not, then it is what it is. And so we kind of had a conversation. I was like, look, I know you don't want to eat the whole thing, because she'll eat like us. I don't know. We've only been to Chick-fil-A breakfast twice.
It's pretty good breakfast.
It's
man.
pretty good.
Grilled egg white.
So we had it in California. We're like, oh, it's good. So I was like, look, the sandwiches are fairly small. I was like, but they're good. So I was like, look, just get that, and Gamma will get the same thing, and you guys will be good with that. But even that little thing, she's like, that's too much for me. And I was like, look, don't overthink it. I'll eat half of it. We'll share the fries. And then, no, I said, we'll eat half of the sandwich. I'll split the half sandwich with you and Gamma split the fries. And in her own sandwich. And we get there, and so I start ordering, and then I say what I had said, and then she's like, she obviously didn't hear, or there was so much going on before that. I was acting like a jackass. Let's just call it what it is. I was kind of being a goof before that. So there was kind of some other stuff happening after that conversation, and she was like, so I walked away from the situation. I was like, I was like, you're right. Our communication sucks, because I literally had told you kind of what the plan was, and then we altered the plan because when I was ordering, you were like, oh, well, what about the fries? What I want, I thought we were going to share fries. I was like, no, I didn't say I want fries. You and Gamma are going to share fries, but I was like, whatever, I'll get 2 fries. And then, Gamma ended up eating all the fries anyways, but it just, that small situation, I was like, it was like that thing where I had just moments before, we talked about like, oh, I think our communication is good. And then that happens. I was like, no, you're right. maybe I'm not communicating clearly enough. Maybe I'm not explaining my, thought process far enough to make it understand, and vice versa. Sometimes I tune out and don't really hear what they say.
I was about to say this happens a lot with us, and what I think it more is we both, like, as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're talking my wife and me or your wife and you, one of us has a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
Their mind's thinking about something. Taylor's over here thinking, I don't want to be late. I this, and this. And so you're speaking where she's looking at you,
Mm-hmm.
and she just doesn't. It's that in one ear, out the other, and it's not that she's trying, because this happens with my wife and I all the time. And I do agree. It's something that we need to stop, and we need to work on that communication, because there's times that I'll do the same thing. I'll, have this, hey, I'm going to do this, this, and this, so you can do this, this, and this. And then I'll start doing mine. And she's like, well, what's the, and I'm like, I just told you the plan, and I think it's that, and it's a two-part system in my mind, because obviously there are two factors here. Like I said, your wife was probably thinking, we're going to be late. We're going to do this. I got to make sure I have this, and this. And she's doing the kind of the mom thing in my mind. She's doing the mom thing of your story, like trying to make sure, okay, I got this for our daughter. I got this. I got that. I got that. I got this for us. Da, 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 da. And your dad, you're like, Mom, yeah, hey, let's figure this plan out,
Yeah.
And we're thinking simple, they're thinking complex. And I think it all does boil down to communication and how you effectively talk to each other about it. So that, yeah, ultimately, I think we have those situations all the freaking time.
Yeah. I think it's normal, right? I think it's easier to sometimes avoid it, and then it just comes into something major. But we just call those little issues out, and then we, there's some intense conversations, and then we work through it, and I admit my faults and kind of the things that I can work on, and she does the same, and we attack it. We be better at it, and that's just the reality of it. It's just I used to be the type of person to just avoid it, like, it's fine, we're good, and then it always just resurfaces. It comes back because it's an ongoing issue, right? You're not actually fixing anything. So,
well, that all kind of boils down and backs up, and I think you have less traits of it than I do. But like the quote unquote no more Mr. Nice Guy, like we've talked about and like I posted about. I think it all kind of rolls back into some of that stuff. Whereas you're trying to be that more people pleaser, so sometimes you pull your communication back. One, because you're like, I don't need to antagonize the situation, or, like for me, my communication, I'm working on it. I've been working on it for a long time. And, once I finally started to admit more things are bothering me, or more things are hurting me, or more of what I needed out of life, ultimately, this is a conversation I've had way too many times over the last like 2 or 3 weeks, which sucks to say, but also it's a good thing.
Right.
At the end of the day, whatever I choose to do is what I have to be confident in choosing what to do. And I'm going to communicate that the best to you that I can. But at the end of the day, I can't control what you're going to do. I can communicate how I feel, how I want things to be. But then I also need to be reciprocal. That's not the right word. Reciprocated. And hey, this is more, and it goes back to boundaries too. This is my boundary with that. This is my boundary with that. This is my boundary. Okay, what can we do to work these two together? Communicate to work these together. You get that people pleasing mentality. You get that, don't say no to my wife kind of thing. But the communication, and a lot of them, they at first, you're one thing, and then it kind of just leads into this. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. And I'm like, look, I'm going to be better at my communicating with you. What's bothering me? What's hurting me? What's this? But on the flip side of that, I also think there can be, to a point, over communicating on certain things. If you're saying the same shit every day, you're not communicating properly and effectively.
You're not being true to your word, right?
Yeah. And like I said, if you're communicating the same shit, which has been an issue in the past of us, where it's the same shit communicating over and over again. Nothing's changing. Everything's been said, boundaries have been set, but for some reason you're too stupid and you keep going back to the same bullshit. Nothing's going to change. That's where your communication lacks. And from experience, it can cause walls and division to be put up. Whereas you need to start figuring out, okay, we communicated about this. Okay, that problem is communicated. We worked on that. We might revisit it in 6 months to make sure everybody's boundaries are still good and the communication is still good when it comes to that. But we need to move on to the next problem. Tackle that problem. Tackle that problem. Which we've been getting a hell of a lot better at tackling the problems, talking about them, being upfront and honest with feelings and, you know, emotions and what we want, what we need. Because, you know, as the one clip that, you know, the one thing that I said that's gone the most, you're either living on the surface, which nothing can live on, or you're diving deeper, flying high, you know, you're going where things can actually live.
Right.
Because the surface of water is not doing anything for you. But getting down in the depths, things can survive. Right.
No, and kind of going back to the point that you had said about, you know, over communicating and that causing, I guess, issues because you're constantly doing the same thing. I think that always kind of goes for me, like the way I think about it and the way kind of that automatically hit me was like, that's inaction. So it's not, you're not doing the actions. You're talking about said, you know, I don't know. And I'm not going to say the, you know, I'll just say like, if I'm telling my wife like, oh, I'm going to stop drinking, you know, I'm really going to stop. Like this is, she's telling me like, this isn't good. You know, I'm going to stop, you know, I'm not going to drink as much anymore. And then I do it again. Or if I'm telling her throughout the week, like, look, I'm not drinking, you know, and then I drink on the weekend or whatever, get plastered. That still leads back to your action because you were talking it, but you didn't follow through with the action. So then, like you said, that wall starts building. Well, that lack of trust, that lack of faith in somebody that they're going to follow through on their commitment. And I think that's one of the scary things, right? With I think people, at least for myself, one of the biggest, scariest parts when I started kind of communicating my feelings in the way, you know, that dreams and all that type of stuff, that comes with a lot of responsibility. I think when you start speaking what you want, if you start, you know, especially when you start sharing those with your spouse, you sell a big ticket. You know what I mean? You're going to sell a big ticket because that's the things that are coming to your mind. Well, those tickets need to be cashed in at some point. And talk can only take you so far. And, you know, the conversations are great. But the action is what will lead you to whatever you need to do. And that goes straight with, you know, with communication. And I think I can level with you on the people pleasing part, because that was a big part of me. And it still is, you know, I still have some traits of it. And I think it's good, right? In some aspects, as it can be, certain traits or attributes about it are great, but the actual whole of people pleasing it's a disease for the person that's doing it, because you ultimately are always sad and depressed. And
100%. I mean,
it's not a good
I think you were in on the conversation yesterday. We were talking with our uncle about it. I'm pretty positive you might have been in on it.
I might have.
You know, we were talking about, you know, where I'm currently working and everything. It's insanely busy. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's that people pleasing mentality, you know, and it's not. The thing is as a people pleaser, you never mean to harm somebody by letting them down. That's never your intention. Your intention's, I can do everything. The reality is you can only do so much, right. Which is something I've come to conclusion with too. I can only do so much,
right?
You know, between family, friends, myself, my wife, I'm like, there's only so much time in a day. Mm-hmm. And yes, like we've had one friend that's, hey, we're doing this, and it always lands at a time where I'm like, you know, one of the times was the wife worked late, and the other time was, well, she ended up getting off early, but for some reason, you know, me and Lagoon did not agree with each other, and it took me until fuck, I think yesterday, I stopped having like massive migraines and stuff. Like it was weird to the point that like heat was affecting me.
Wow.
So I'd like get nauseous if I got really hot. And, you know, he's like, hey, we're hanging out at a park with the kids and stuff if you want to come by. And I'm like, at first I was like, well, let me see what the wife thinks. And then, because I didn't know she was going to get off early. And I was like, okay, well, looked at her and I was like, I can't do the heat. Like, I thought I was okay, but I can't. And she's like, well, I need you to communicate it this time. And I'm like, that's fine. I can do that. You know, we kind of got busy and I ended up, you know, I'm like, hey, look, dude, I'm sorry as much as I want to. You know, the heat has been really kicking my ass this week. I don't know what it is. Like, it's nothing again, you know, and he didn't take it. And he's like, look, it was super last minute. You guys are good. But also with that, I flipped the coin and I said, hey, look, you know, we've been wanting to get the kids together to go swimming. Do you have time this weekend? We'll make time to make sure that we're there for you this weekend. So we agreed, you know, what is it? Today is Sunday, yes. So we're going today at like noon. Yeah, both of us are like, watches. You know, so we're going at like noon or 1 to go hang out and let our kids swim and like hang out and stuff. Because it's like at a certain point, yes, I want to build these relationships. And there was a people-pleasing mentality, but at the same point, I'm like, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to communicate that with them properly.
I love that. No, I think that's a good point, right? I think a lot of times, and it's interesting that you say that because, like I said, as a person that definitely had that attribute of like people pleasing for a very, very long time, you said something, you know, that kind of was ironic to me because we, as a people pleaser, you think of these things of like because we're talking about communication, right? It's all kind of looping on in together. It's all intertwined in there. But you, like you said, you might overcommit to something, right? Because you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or you don't want to be a bad guy. And I don't know. I can't tell people why you feel this way. I don't know. That's just the first thought that would come into my mind of like, well, if I say no to this person or if I say I can't do it for some odd reason in my head, almost all of a sudden a jerk because I'm, you know, not doing what they want to do, right? But it's ironic because you would then I would overcommit and then not follow through in the commitment that he made. So and to say, you know, I told them that, and I don't think I ever did this, but I'm just saying, if you look at it, like say you overcommit, and so you overcommitted in a day where you were like, you told 2 friends you were going to help them move. One friend's going to get let down. The other friend is already going to look at you a certain way because you didn't follow through on your commitment. So you still have somehow created a sense of reassuring, like you reassured yourself that you're a bad guy, or you've kind of, you know, already laid that in your head, and then that happens, and then like, oh, well, he didn't follow through on his commitment. And then you know that. It's like this whole I feel like also when it comes to like being the people pleaser, it also falls into like a trait of overthinking.
Yeah.
Because you overthink everything.
You do.
Everything.
100%. As somebody that overthinks the living fuck out of everything, that working on myself, working on my mentality, working on more of a present mindset has helped stop a lot of the overthinking. I don't, you know, there's stuff I still think a lot, but a lot of my thoughts are more current, more active, more in tune with what I'm trying to do, rather than sitting here thinking about every little detail that, one, I can't fucking control. So why control it? And two, what difference does that make? Yeah, I catch myself having thoughts. So what if this? But it's like, why don't I just communicate right now? Or, you know, if I'm in the middle of a conversation with my wife, I might circle back to it. Hey, I had this thought. What do you think? Or what's this? Da-da-da-da-da. And honestly, like we've talked about more often than not, honesty, you know, being upfront, communication, setting boundaries, it's going to help build the relationship. You know, and that book I keep going back to talks about that, you know, and at the end of the day, it's one way or the other. Your wife's either going to get on board with you and communicate more with you, or she's going to say, that's that's a boundary we set. So we need to circle back and figure out how the hell to get here and not outside the circle, because I'm not doing that.
Right.
Which, again, everybody communicate. Fuck. And, I've been I've been married for 12 years, guys. 12 years. We talked about this yesterday, which, your father-in-law and mother-in-law apparently have been married for 35 years.
Today.
Yeah. And, he gave a very smart-ass answer to his daughter when she asked. But that, and I don't even remember what smart-ass remarked. But, I think it ultimately comes back to, I believe they have pretty good communication. And they've learned each other a lot. But they also were married and dealt with a lot of things before social media, the internet, texting, all this bullshit came around. Because I look back at the beginning of my relationship versus now, and yes, I had, MySpace and texting and AOL, but a lot of it was done because we were so young too. That doesn't help anything. A lot of it was done like on AOL or over the phone, because she didn't necessarily have a cell phone to begin with. So it was AOL, get on AOL Messenger, kill everybody's communication with life so we could chat back and forth, or, hop on the internet and MySpace back and forth, or phone calls. So we had to actually talk to each other or hang out, whereas 90% of the world now is through an instant message, through a screen, through the 90%. The fuck am I talking about? 100%.
100%, yeah.
Through a screen, through this, through that. And you lose that, and you kind of end up craving it. Some people end up going reverse, and I'm that. I'm ended up almost craving more of the personal interaction than I am on the phone. I try not to message a ton of people, period. I knew I had time the other day, and my buddy's birthday was Friday, so I called him on Wednesday or something, knowing my day, and I'm like, hey, I just want to preemptively say happy birthday. I know what my Friday looks like. I don't know your work schedule currently. So I'm just calling to say happy early birthday, talk to you for a minute. We communicated, and then I had time. I made the time to just shoot him a text. But I made the phone call a couple of days early because I'm like, I don't want to forget this. It's on my mind. It's super fresh. I don't talk to you all the time, but you're still a close friend of mine, so I'm going to call you up and at least say, hey, I hope you have a good early birthday. Hopefully you're doing something. And, texting back and forth for a little bit on his birthday, and that was about it. But I took the time to communicate with him and say, hey, I might get busy doing my life, so I just want to say, hey, communicate. I don't know where the hell that even started and was going, but started with freaking marriage and went over here, but that's my mind, guys. But it all comes back to communication and taking care of myself first too. At the end of the day, that was all taking care of myself.
Right.
It was putting myself first. I know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to try to help you out. I'm going to try to help you. I'm going to try to help you.
I like that. I think a lot of times too, as the people pleaser, what I would end up doing is, want to say something, but I wouldn't say anything for the same reason. I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. But then you just sit with that and you linger with that thought of okay, I'm going to tell them later, or I'll bring it up at a later point. But then you never do, and then you just bury it, and it just becomes an issue, a greater issue than it ever needed to be. And then it just turns into something bigger than it ever needed to be. And then you internally, I think people start resenting the other person if you don't communicate, even the smallest of feelings. I would be like, oh, I don't want to, and it's silly, but this is really how I started. I would just communicate my emotion, just be like, look, what you did there upset me. And that's really how it just started. It wasn't these grandiose conversations and anything big. Now we have greater conversations because I can actually communicate myself.
Yeah, you're in the depths of it. You're going deeper into the relationship. You're not sitting on that surface of the relationship anymore, because sorry to cut you off, but that one, hey, that I didn't realize that hurt me as much as it did.
Right.
Because the opposite's true. your wife didn't realize that she
Mhm.
upset you that much.
Exactly.
Your actions might say one thing, whether it's good or bad action, but she doesn't realize what the emotional effect of that was. And vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
You might go do something and your wife might look at you and be like, that wasn't very fucking cool. Like
Right.
that hurt me more than it should have, or for whatever reason. And you just have to step back and say, and it comes back to you as a personal choice where you set your boundary. Cool, I'm not doing that anymore because, yeah, I may not have had the greatest time doing it, or, ultimately she's right. That can affect our marriage big time, and I've got to make a choice.
Right. No, I think that's a fair point. I think
Hopefully that's where you're going.
no, yeah. It's sometimes the perspective from the other person might be skewed a little bit because you've already put so many, like, that's what ends up happening is it just builds up. So the most minute thing might come across to you as something that it's really not. But it goes back to, that, like I said, that simple conversation, that simple statement of like, hey, I don't like the way that came across, or I don't like this. And that conversation starts to kind of flow back and forth. Well, that's not actually how I meant it. Well, how did you mean it? Oh,
I
okay.
was going there next.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was going there next because that's exactly where I was going to go with it right after you, but you kind of beat me to it. That same subject of, well, okay. And this, I don't remember the exact words, but this had basically happened not that long ago. Context is key to everything when it comes here, said something to my wife and she's like, yeah, I don't like that. But on the flip side, it's like, well, if you could have seen my emotions, you could have felt how I felt, you wouldn't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, look, I'm sorry. Like, I understand that context was lost in this situation, but that wasn't meant that way, and that kind of a thing or, hey, that really upset me. Well, that it wasn't supposed to, I didn't realize this, and this,
Mm-hmm.
or, we need to work on this, and this, or it was never meant that way. It was meant, obviously there's caveats to everything.
Everything.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sometimes just that simple communication. Hey, that hurt me. Oh, I can see why next time I will do this a little bit different with that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that'd help out a ton.
Yeah, that's true. And we're not, at least for me, I'm not no freaking guru. I'm not like, no, we're learning this every single, like I said, we started this conversation with saying, me and my wife had a conversation yesterday about how our communication sucks. So if anybody's listening to this and they're like, oh, these guys are making it, and they seem that it's so freaking easy and like every single day I got to work at this. Every single day we have some type of conversation about how we can be better at it, or an argument or whatever. But that's what I choose to be in. That's what I would choose, that than not saying anything. And then one day we wake up and my wife's like, I don't want to be with you because we don't have any conversation about, we're not building anything, this isn't constructive at all. And I think, my wife tells us, she's like, I was like, I just have a hard time communicating, I just rather not tell you so you don't know that I'm upset. She's like, babe, you don't do a good job of hiding your emotions on your face. And I was like, and I've heard it my whole life, they're like, people be like, oh, you're mad, huh? I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, no, dude, you're mad. Like, you don't hide it very well. And I'm like, oh, okay. So she tells me, it's like, I already know. So just tell me what's wrong, and we can deal with it.
My only caveat to that is it depends on how you can communicate, because AKA me, I might, and my wife, we both might need that minute to cool off.
Yeah.
Because there's times that I might want to rush in and get upset for whatever reason. But I, again, have learned quite a bit, especially over the last 6-8 months, that I'm like, look, I need to take my time, one, to think about it all. And am I really this pissed that I feel right now? Or is this just me being a fucking asshat right now, or whatever?
Right.
And most of the time, it might come back to me it might not, I wouldn't say overthinking, but it might be me overreacting to a situation that is not as bad as it is in reality. And so, again, same thing. My wife says the same thing. What's bothering you? What's going on? But at those specific times, I'm like, I'm too heated, or it's not important enough because it might be something we've talked about, something we've hit on, something we've beat to the ground because we've talked about it enough that it's an internal issue, and it's that controlling the uncontrollable.
Right.
Where I can't control it, and so it's something I need to work on myself. But I need to be able to come back, which this is the part I'm failing on more than anything, come back and say, hey, yeah, I was upset, but these are the reasons why. But I also realize this, this, and this are reasons why I was overreacting. But this is still an issue that I would like to try to talk about.
Yeah. That's an interesting dynamic, because we have a similar dynamic, and I don't know, maybe you guys have similar too, but I am for the most part, I'm very calm, and I've learned that over time of just kind of taking things slow, and I think things through so when we're in an argument, I need a minute. Like, I can have a conversation with you, but I will match whatever energy you got. So if you're coming at me pretty hot, I'll kind of, I'll try to keep it cool. But if it continues, I get to a point where I just can't anymore. And
yep.
So I've learned to be able to, when Taylor and I have a conversation, we're really just, she's telling me what she needs, and I'm really thinking about what I'm going to say. That's one of my, faults, I guess, is where I'm thinking so deeply that I need a moment. I need a moment to think through what I'm going to say, because in my head, I don't want to say anything that I can't come back from, or that I feel like I have to apologize for it later. Tay-Tay is more of like, now, I want to deal with it now. Let's talk through it now. Let's fix it now. And I'm like, just let me think. Let me think through. And so we had to learn that dynamic of like communication. From my point, say, hey, I need a minute. Let me think this through. I heard everything you said. I'm just thinking things through, and I'm going to come back to you. Or there's been times where I'm too hot. I know that I'm going to say something stupid. Like, I know that I'm at a point where I'm not thinking rationally. I just want to react and be defensive. And so I'll tell her, like, look, I just need a minute, but I promise that once I'm upset, like I really am. And obviously you're upset, I'm not taking her feelings either. I'm like, I'm upset, and I just need a minute so that we can talk through this. We'll circle back. Usually these conversations happen in the car, so there's nowhere to go. So, and that happened yesterday, I'm like, same thing, where I was upset, and I was like, I'm upset. I'm over it, but we'll come back to it. And then, 20 minutes later, 15 minutes later into the drive, I was like, I apologize. Like, look, I'm sorry. The way I reacted in that moment, I kind of F everything. Okay, let's just do whatever, I didn't say F any, but that was my actions, right? Yeah. And so I was like, look, I apologize for the way I acted, and, but I completely understand what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. But it goes back to, you got to find that dynamic, because every dynamic is a little different. And I think that was a learning curve for us, and the communication part of it was, she wants to deal with it now. I can not deal with it, or deal with it in 5 minutes. I don't really care. But at some point it has to be resolved. And the moment wasn't like, we'll just talk about it later, or I don't want to talk about it right now. Well, that doesn't help the person that wants to fix the situation. That's almost like you're like pushing it to the side. So we had to learn like our message in that circumstance to say, hey, I just need 5 minutes. And that was our cue. And that was a conversation that we had based on a situation that happened like that, where we had to come up with this verbiage where we could say, for her to hear me say, hey, I just need 5 minutes, because it was her explaining this, how my mind is working. And like, I'm thinking through it. I'm not ignoring you. I'm not zoning you out. I'm literally processing this and finding how to say this appropriately. And so she was like, oh, I didn't know that. She's like, I thought you were just ignoring me. And I'm like, no. Like, and so that came out of it was, look, I just need 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes and I'll come back to you. Now, it doesn't always work as clear as cut and dry. Sometimes we don't do that. But like I said, we're learning. We found that little part where we can say, when we know we're at a certain part. But it's just, it wouldn't have started without little communications, and it builds and builds and builds over time. And then you just get, better and better at it. And you take step back, take 2 steps back, but then you just pick back up where you're at. And, it's not getting down on yourself that damn, we're just not communicating good anymore. We're just never gonna. Well, you're never gonna be at 100%. You're always gonna have room to grow. So it's just
and that's part of it is you always want to be growing yourself and together, with your spouse together. Like we've had to have kind of the same thing conversations where, but this I'm going to take the responsibility for probably most all of this here, because I wasn't communicating my feelings as effectively for a long time because of that, nice guy type shit, which, excuse or not, it is what it is, guys. I'm not perfect, but I've learned that I need to communicate a little bit more up front. Because it's not that I'm not being honest when I'm doing it, but I'm lying to somebody in the grand scheme of it. I'm either lying to myself or I'm lying to her saying nothing's wrong. I just need to be more upfront, which you make a good point. Hey, I need a couple minutes to deal with this shit because it's bothering me, because I know I'm going to say stuff. Because that happens. You get heated, you say something, and you're like, fuck. And usually the second it comes out of your mouth, you're kicking yourself in the ass. Why did I say that? Now I'm going to have to, it's not that I meant it, but at a certain point you kind of did mean what you said because it
came out.
Was there.
Yeah.
And the more you communicate, the better you get at this. The more you're with somebody, the more you can communicate. And that's ultimately what I'm coming back to, because I kind of lost my train of thought. But you need to work on communicating with that person. I like your point. If there's something I was going to take away from all of that, it's that, hey, I need 5 minutes. Hey, I'm going to go do the dishes, and then we can revisit this conversation. Or I'm going to go do this, and then we'll revisit. I'm very famous for, if I'm really pissed off, I just start cleaning, which is good and bad, because my wife's like, yeah, you're fucking pissed. What is going on? Yeah. Half the time she knows, half the time, I would say more than half the time, she already knows exactly what's going on, what's bothering me. Right. But it's, again, you have that part of that uncontrollable that you can't control how that person's going to act or react to you. But if you communicate it, you guys can come up with a control, like you said. I like that. Give me some time. And we've done that in the past where, if my wife's been upset, hey, I need 30 minutes, I need an hour, I'm going to take some time for myself and to me, I'm like, my mind, I'm like, give me a time frame. That way I have an idea. And we've done that. We kind of know where things are at. She's like, I want my time at the gym. And I'm like, okay, like I just text you back. Like, I understand. Like, she's like, well, you get it. And I'm like, that's fine. I like that idea. Right. Because I like the focus. So. Yeah. I mean, and as you guys could tell if you watched last week's episode, she's extremely focused in what she does. She's very diligent, so.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Communication is a
bitch.
Yeah. But it helps.
It does.
It's something that's critical, and
these Fortune.
I'm not perfect at it. I'm not. I don't know. We just work at it. That's the thing. Just work at it. That's all you got to do. And I think as a partner will see that you're trying. They will see like, oh, he's actually trying to communicate. He's actually trying to understand. And there's forms of bad communication, and that goes back to communication. Your partner should tell you like, I didn't like the way you communicated that. I used to say stupid shit like almost gaslighting shit. I'd be like, oh, well, why would I be mad at you? I want her to tell me why I'm mad at her. Like some gaslight shit, and she was like, I don't like that question. I don't like that you asked that. Like you don't make me tell you why, why I'm mad at you. Just tell me why you're mad. Like why you're upset. Yeah. Like, don't make me tell you why you're upset at me. You just tell me why you're upset. But that's the people pleaser. Like I rather them come to the conclusion instead of me telling them my actual feelings. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was like this weird gaslight shit. So there's bad communication, and I think that just comes with communication, and you figure things out. You figure each other's dynamic, friends, relationships, work, and yeah, you just got to kind of figure it out.
And I've noticed that as we are evolving in our personal lives, your communication needs to change. Because you can't, like, I can't communicate with her how I did 10 years ago, how I do now. I can't communicate with her 5 years. I can't communicate with her the same a year.
Yeah.
But if I'm working on evolving and she's working on evolving, we hopefully are working on evolving towards the same goals.
100%.
Which that right now is more the perfect alignment. You know, we're working towards the same goals, but we still got to relearn communication almost daily, because my mindset might change that little bit more and hers might be over here a little bit differently, but we've got to somehow get back to a together mindset.
Right. I like that. It's a variable. It's a variable from our standpoint, it's a variable from their standpoint. You can wake up on, like they say, on the wrong side of the bed one day, and you as a partner need to know how to communicate to them that day, and vice versa. You know, your husband or wife gets home from work. There's, you can't just bombard them with, well, I'm upset because, we did this. Well, that probably isn't the best situation. They're just trying to unwind a bit. You probably give a minute before you start unloading why you're mad at them about something that happened yesterday. You know what I mean? But that's just, yeah, you're right. It's just, you have to evolve and you learn each other, and it's a fluid thing. It's not, I keep going, like, it's not this linear thing that you just do. It's fluid. It's up in the moment, and you have to have this toolkit to come back to, whether it be the 5 minutes or, hey, and I think you hit on it too. It was very clear to say, like, I just need 5 minutes while I do this dishes, and I'll come back and we can talk about it. It's not just like, we'll talk about it later. That later can be in 2 minutes. It can be 2 days.
Yeah.
But if you give a woman, clear, like, not directions, but clear communication of, like, I just need 10 minutes. I'm going to do the dishes, and then I'll come back and we can talk about it. I'm just going to think things through real quick.
And see,
nobody's going to be upset about that.
see, my wife and I, the only difference there is I'm the one that's like, I need a fucking time frame. And it's less and less. Again, I'm evolving all the time.
Right.
I'm going to therapy. I'm working on myself. I'm reading these books. I finished the 75 Hard, and I've learned a whole new set of skills.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I love the time frame idea, and I'm going to bring that back up to her today. Say, hey, if we're having issues, let's set a time frame.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you need. I know what I need. Let's set a time frame, or at least that's what I'd like to try to do, is set a time frame. That way I have an idea of when to revisit it, because it did work in the past. We'd had it set up where she's like, hey, I'm like, hey, give me a time frame. I don't care whatever your time frame is, but at least give me a time frame, because that gives me time to think up to then,
mm-hmm.
and then I can revisit the situation. But part of that, I would only suggest, is that you come in with a better attitude, because you're not going to get fucking anywhere if you don't. But my thing was, when we did have that more set in, it was, I'm not going to approach it and be like, well, are you ready to talk now?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to approach with, hey, how are you doing? You're feeling better now? Something, and feeling better now, that's not going to work with most people either. But don't say that shit. But something along those lines, like, kind of slowly ease back into it and then go, hey. But I will say, some of your bigger issues are much better in person, guys.
Oh, yeah.
By some, I mean fucking all of them.
Jeez.
Because, like I said before, context is lost. Like, I can say something and I can be like in this fucking bright, happy, smiling from fucking ear to ear, but possible wording or context might be lost through that text message. And she's like, the fuck are you doing? Like,
yeah.
What? And she's mad at me now. And I'm like, whoa. Back the fuck up.
This is not.
And like I said, that happened not that long ago. I'm like, whoa, back the fuck up. This is not where this is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And, it took me a minute. And I'm like, cool, I need to readjust how this all. And, that night I went to her and I'm like, look, I'm sorry. It wasn't meant this way. I love you. And I didn't even say, I love you. I just told her, straight up, like, I love you. I adore you. It was never meant that way. And I realized where you got your issues from. And then I realized how me reacting was was also a problem in this issue. So I realized this, and this, but I also wanted to come to you now because I want to fix this and I want to communicate with you better through this process versus wait until tomorrow and send you a text message because, I'm got off early and and the whole time I've been married through this whole 5-year journey, she really does not like getting up early. So, and that's just my life. But I'm like, I need to communicate this with you now and in person because I know this is what you need from me and this is what I need to give you because it's not what we were doing was not working very well. And this is the start of the change for this.
Well, you hit it right where it needed to be because when you were trying to figure out how do you open the conversation after you're going to reconvene after an argument, right? Maybe this doesn't work for everybody, but this is you the way you said it works for me every single time. Because you don't want to come back into I need 5 minutes. Well, you're ready to,
you fucking ready yet?
You figured out what you did, no. And I've done it.
Same.
So, but I had to learn and it started from extreme ownership.
Love that book.
I had to take ownership of what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to. My wife knows she's her worst critic. And nobody's meaner to her than herself.
Absolutely.
And I don't need to
add to that
mind of what she's thinking. So I came to the realization in the book, I'm here to fix my issues. Because not everything it's a two-way street. So I tend to try to come into those conversations of like you said, hey, what I did here, I apologize. And 99% of the time, if the level is still up here, she comes down and vice versa. If I'm up here and she comes in and says, hey, I apologize for what I did or what I said, my defenses come all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, what I thought I was going to say, I can't say that because she's literally apologizing to me and saying that she's sorry for what she did. Or that means she's already recognized what she did wrong. I don't need to push it back in her face and be like, well, you're right. Yeah, no, I'm like, you're right. I apologize for what I did, and then we start actually communicating. That the way you said it was perfect. That's the way I always try to start those conversations back up is by pointing out the things that I did. The things I know that I need to do better at, and there's not always something huge, but there's always something I could have done better. Whether it be hey, I apologize, I should have communicated that better, or hey, I should have done this better. There's always something you can do better. So it's an easy way for me to kind of neutralize the conversation, bring it back down, and sometimes we go back. She's still up here. And it's okay. And then I hear her perspective. I say, you're right. I could have done better at that. Because I'm listening to her. I'm not just letting it go in through one and not the other. You're right. And I acknowledge it. You're right. I could have done better at that. And but that was, you hit it right where it needed to be.
And as humans, sometimes we don't realize what is affecting that other person either. It might be hey, I realize I did this action wrong, and they might come back and say, well, you also did this. And you have to, that's where, again, extreme ownership, you have to stop and say, you either have to own it. I mean, you have to own it either way, but you have to own it and be like, look, yes, that might have been fucked up, but the truth is in there.
Right.
That we need to work on this, that this is an issue. But again, it's how you connect to it. It's how your emotions behind it, but it's also learning that communication through that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it might be something you stand hard on. I'm not deviating from this, but you need to have that conversation. You might end up deviating a little bit, but you have your truths, they have their truths, right. But you need to come to a compromise in my mind. You need to come to an understanding. Somewhere has to give, but on the flip side of that, you might, there's times she said something and I've stepped back and been like, oh,
mm-hmm.
Oh, I see it now.
Yeah.
I understand it now. And it clicks more.
Yeah.
You know.
I love it, man. This has been a a crazy conversation. It's been
Yeah,
been a little everywhere, but I think ultimately
it all leads back to communication, like we're doing, communicating.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had no clue what we were doing today when I walked in.
Hey, we used to do it that way all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but then
I
we
was
got some
like-
structure, and I think this one flowed very well. And I think it's we just learned to even me and you, we communicate better, and
Yeah.
we just it's a constant growth. It's just a form of life, and I hope people cannot lose that, because it is a necessary skill to have. You need to be able to communicate with people appropriately, and
Sorry.
we did do an episode on communication.
I was like, didn't we? But I feel like this one turned out better.
Yeah. We're just gonna do all. Just
Yeah,
get
I mean,
better.
we're
No, it's all moment based. I feel
Yeah.
like I said, this happened yesterday, and then we just happened to start talking about communication. So, and we're growing. The lesson we gave at the beginning, the first episode, it might not be
as applicable anymore.
because we've grown, and so that's the way it is.
It's ever evolving.
Yes, sir.
Guys, first before we get into the challenges, I wanna step back and say I overwhelmed with the amount of love and support you guys gave my wife. These clips are rolling out. We're working on things, guys. Things are going to be a little chaotic over the next couple weeks. You'll see the scenery change a little bit, various reasons. We've got things that we're working on, plans, changes, moves, all this fun stuff. But we are committed to being here for you guys every week. My amazing host has some vacations coming up, and guys, we're going to, one of these days, hopefully I don't know what the background's going to be because we haven't been there, but hopefully some Red Rocks in the back while we record early morning, sipping some coffee in Moab. It's going to be great. I can't wait. And honestly, we might just invite our wives to come join us on that one.
This would be a perfect scenario.
And just do the same kind of thing today. And maybe I want to get them on. We need to do that.
That'd be pretty cool, actually.
I think we just need to get them on and start talking and see where the communication and
we start talking about this, and then even anything.
Yeah, just start flowing and see where they bring it in and see how they roll in with it and everything. But yes, guys, thank you. We love you. We appreciate you. My wife has been overwhelmed with the support, and it's absolutely amazing. You guys have been awesome. I've loved seeing all the reshares. I've loved seeing all the people tag her, tag me. I've loved seeing all the comments, the likes. I mean, I just got a notification this morning that you guys out there it's I think our second reel that's reached over 1,000 people. 1,000 people have seen it. I got that this morning when I woke up. I was like, hell yeah, this is awesome. Like,
that is awesome.
The fact that we're taking the steps and hopefully helping change people and motivating people.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've gotten a handful of, dude, I love your message. I was talking to a guy the other day that lost 100 pounds that eventually we'll have on the show, and he's like, I'm always down. Yeah. But it's, same thing. It's like, hey, awesome show. Guys, it's because of you that we're going to grow. Mm-hmm. So we appreciate everybody. We love you guys. I just wanted to take a minute. Hit the challenge. Yeah,
no, and I'll hit the challenge with just one more thing. And we also do this to share your guys' story, because we all have a story. We started this with, my whole vision was to get our stories. There was a third, and I know that situation didn't work out the way we wanted to, but we'll get him on at some point and share his story. He does have an incredible story. I wanted to share your story with kind of the things that you've been through. I want to share my story, and it's just, we want to give people the opportunity, because everybody has a story that can impact somebody. You can only impact a certain amount of group of people because they connect with you in that level. And I know the reality behind it. I might not be for everybody's cup of tea. Same vice versa for him, and even with Soph and my wife and every other guest that we'll have on here. But I know that they have a core group that people can really connect them with their stories, and that's all we really want to give people, is the opportunity to be able to share that with us and with everybody else. And hopefully you can find a community within the people that we have, and just feel part of, like I said, part of a community, because that's really what we're trying to build, guys. So, challenges. Oh man. And thanks, Soph. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. This is really a dream that's becoming true for me, and it really couldn't happen without everybody's support and willingness to step up, and yeah, I'm super happy. So challenges, I mean, for communication, I mean, for me, I think just find a toolkit that you can utilize to go back to. It doesn't need to be something we mentioned on this one. I would hope it would, but it doesn't have to. There's so many books, there's so many YouTube things, there's so many different things you can find. But I think if you just start working on that communication part and find a toolkit, something you can come back to when you're really upset or when you're really sad or when somebody's done anything to you, that you take that step to work on that communication and implement that into your life. Because it's not just about talking about it, it's about implementation in action. And so I hope that you take something from this podcast or take something that you've read and implement it into your own relationship or your own life to help better yourself, because that's really what it's about. It's not just about talking it, but it's about actually doing the action.
I like that. My challenge would be find something, especially if you're in a relationship. Mine's going to focus more on relationship ones. If you're in a relationship, if there's something you've been desiring, start big, start small, start big. I mean, pick your poison. I'm not in your relationship, but pick a thing to be honest with your wife about this week. Just something you've been desiring, whether it's to go play a round of golf, whether it's to, whatever it is, small might be better for some of you if you haven't opened communications up quite a bit. If you have, maybe you have this big grandiose idea you want to share with your wife, but you're just scared. Take that leap of faith, because you can't control what they're going to do. But if you hide on your desires all the time, you're not communicating. You're not being honest with yourself. So pick something and just go be honest with your spouse, husband, wife, whichever way you're looking at this. Just go be honest. Hey, even if it's as simple as, hey, I need 5 minutes a night where I can just read a book. Mm-hmm. Something just so simple. Hey, I need you to cook one night a week now. Simple, guys. Take that little bit and just go do that. Be honest with your wife, because honestly, I'm using that word more than I want to, but it's been the best thing. Just being open up front. Hey, I need this from you. Hey, I need this for myself. Hey, I need this. Hey, I need that. It's been better because she can do the same to me. So
love it. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Hope you guys have a wonderful week. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll
I'm ready for a new week. It's been a rough 2 weeks.
We got it. Thank you, guys. Love you guys. We'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you, guys.